Okay, so today we're going to talk about step 10, which is your major close and qualification of incentives. But before we get there, I want to back up to the last video for just a couple of minutes. And I want to explain a second way that you can go over payments with someone while you're trying to find what their comfort zone is. I want to explain this way because this is a way that a lot of Nick's people use and a lot of Harlan's people use. And I think it's also a good way to bring up payments. And the other thing I like about this method, if you're using it, is you're not even bringing up the number of months. Not only are you not bringing up the interest rate, you're not even discussing how long the loan is unless the people ask. So where we were at the last time, we presented the 1-year figure. We let them get that out, express themselves, reminded them that it was a 1 year, any labor or material cost changes, and they know exactly what they're dealing with, even if they come back 6 months or 12 months later to do the project. When you do decide to move forward, John and Mary, would you be doing cash? Would you be doing finance? And the way our cash works is we do a third when you place the order, a third when we deliver materials, and a third when you're completely satisfied. And if they said cash, I'm going to confirm whether these are funds they have readily available or were they going to the bank. We had all that conversation on the last video. And if they had the funds readily available, I would point out that on this order, it's a little over $8,000 for the first third. Would you do that with check, cash, or credit card to make them go source the money? And they say a check and I'd circle it. Now, if they weren't going to do cash and say our financing options, we got the 6 and 12 months, same as cash, no payments, no interest. I'm saying 6 and 12 to see if somebody pops up and goes, well, I'm interested in that 24 because we do use that for advertising, but we want to steer people away from it. If they express interest in any of these, we do make sure they understand they have to have the loan completely paid off by the end of that period, or the interest rate goes through the roof along with the payment that starts. Are you sure you can handle that? Most people can't if they're saying finance, so we can just exit out. If they do say they can handle it, you'll find out why they were interested. If they're looking to split an income year for tax purposes because of a pension plan or a 401k withdrawal, then you might have to do something like the 6 months, but you won't have to do the 12 or 24. And the way you can move them off of the 24 is you simply say, folks, it is a program that's available, but obviously we'd like to get our money sooner rather than later. In cases like yours where people have been very responsible and have the ability to pay cash, I am authorized to offer an additional incentive of whatever. If it's a small deal, $1,200. If it's a bigger deal, it might be $1,900. But I'm basically going to offer 4 to 6% of that 11% extra that I've added as an incentive to either do the traditional cash situation or, at worst case scenario, the 6 months if they're trying to split income years. Anyway, but for our finance people, to talk about the other way to talk about payments, it goes like this. You've X'd out the same as cash. Now, as far as a monthly investment, John and Mary, we really have 3 types of customers. Our first customer is somebody who would take care of this project, very similar to a car loan, and they might do something like $525 a month. And the second kind of customer, most of our customers, like myself, would take out a longer term so that they could have the lowest possible monthly investment, and then they would decide when to send extra or something like that. And they might do this for something like $290 a month. And then a third kind of customer, about 25% of the people we do business with, they would split the difference, and they would do something about $400 a month. So about 10% of our customers would treat it like a car loan. Most people, like myself, about 70% of the people we do business with, they would take the lowest possible monthly investment, just take a little bit longer term. And then about 10%, 15% of the people would split the difference. John and Mary, which one of these would work best for you? And most people are going to say the 290, or they'll volunteer and say, I couldn't do anything more than 250 or 260, and they'll tell you the number that they can do it. So this is just another way that you can talk about monthly investments to find out what their comfort zone is without having to get into a lot of back and forth detail about interest rates or monthlies unless they ask. Now, if somebody were to ask me when I first present this, let me do it again. I say, John and Mary, now as far as a monthly investment, we really have 3 kinds of customers. About 10 or 15% of the people that we do business with would treat this like a car loan, and they might do something like $525 a month. And then most of our customers, like me, about 70% of the people we do business with, what they would do is they would take a longer term to have the lowest possible monthly investment, and they would do something around $290 a month. And then the rest of the customers, about 15%, they'll split the difference. They would do something like $375 a month. Now, John and Mary, between these three, which one best describes yourself? Now, if somebody were to come back at this point and ask me, well, how long is that for? I would be very honest with them. I'd say, to be honest with you, John and Mary, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not avoiding that question. I'm certainly going to answer it for you. I know it's important. But it really doesn't matter how long or short the note is for if it doesn't fit into your budget, right? So what I want to do is let's find the number that fits in your budget, and then I'll figure out exactly what we're talking about term-wise, and I can share that with you as well. And then I go right back to the question, which one of these would work for you on a monthly budget basis? And I go right back to the question, because there's no point in getting sidetracked about anything else until you know you are talking about a number that works for them. It doesn't matter whether the loan's for 10 months or 10 years. If they can't afford the monthly investment, you're wasting time on that conversation. So this just lets you focus on the one question you want to know. And if they say, well, we could do the 290, that fits comfortably in your budget 12 months out of 12 months. Well, Harold, actually more like 250 would have forced. Then I'm simply going to change this to the number that works for them and then circle it just like I did over here because it's their number, okay? And then remember, we're also going to ask about a deposit. John and Mary, we do like to get a good faith deposit. Most people will do a third. Does that work for you? That's about $8,000 on a check or credit card. And they would go, probably, they'd go no. And then I'd anchor them with a lower number. And they would either agree to that or they'd volunteer the number they could handle. And I would ask them, is that check, cash, or credit card? And I would write that number with the method of payment and put a circle on it as well. And then you're actually ready to close. So maybe they could do $1,500 down with a credit card. All right. And then at that point, I've got all that, whether they're finance or whether they're cash, I've got all the information. Now, if these were finance people, I would have written the cash down, but obviously I didn't write check or a number because they were finance. And this is what I've ended up with on this sheet of paper at this point. So it's just a little bit different way to talk about payments. I want to give you one other little hint before we move on to actually talking about qualifying for the incentives in the major close. One of the things that will help you when you're new is there are two numbers that you want to have a sense of before you start the close. And that first number is your lowest price. In other words, what is your one click minus 18%? What is 82% of one click? What is that? And what is the number of the 11% you added? What is the actual number? Did you add 2,000? Did you add 2,784? Did you add 3,100? What did you add? What was the 11% that you added to create that 1 year number? So an easy way to have these numbers in front of you without making them obvious is you can go to the top. Now, if you're using this sheet, there are a few different price presentation sheets. I don't like the busier ones that have all these blanks you have to fill in. I do not want you pre-filling out your price presentation sheet, because if you do, all this verbiage that you were going to have, they don't even hear. They're just waiting for you to get the lowest possible number on that sheet. Writing it out while you talk to them provides control and pace for you, which means they'll better understand what you're doing. Do not pre-fill out your price presentation sheet. Even if you got messy writing like mine, do not pre-fill out this price presentation sheet. It is a mistake. The only thing that should be on there is their name and their number and the date kind of thing, and then you're filling everything else out. At the top, you can write a promo code. This one says promotion code, or you could write at the top of the paper, you could write promo number AU002840ZWB. So right here I wrote promo number AV00284002W13. Right there is the number I added to create my 1 year. So I have a quick reference if I need that number later on in the conversation. There it is, buried in that promo code. If I wanted to, I could have made that promo code AV00194224VWB. Right there is the lowest possible price I could go to, 18% off of one click, 82% a list. So it's just a little tool. If you don't feel confident you can remember that number in your head, that you can actually have it on the piece of paper in front of you, but it doesn't have any meaning to the homeowner. So just something to file away. All right. So now let's pick this up. You finish price presentation. You're at this point, and you're telling the folks, all right, folks, now let's talk about the programs and incentives that'll save you money. And now that statement moves you into major close qualification of incentives. Let's talk about the programs and incentives that can save you money. Now, you don't want this sheet to become too busy. So if you've got this information in the top half, nice and neat, then you can do what I'm about to do in the bottom half here, and you're still good on this sheet of paper. But you got to be neat to do it. If you're writing big and chunky, or you've got a bunch of extra stuff written, take this conversation, because I'm getting ready to erase this, and move what I'm about to do on the board to your talking pad. Don't have this be a big hot mess, because if it's a hot mess, people don't understand what's there. It gets confusing and they're not going to buy. So if you're super neat, you can have what we've done so far in the top half here, and you've still got room to do what I'm going to erase and do on the board. If you're messy like me, because I'm telling you right now, if I was in a home, this sheet would now be set aside and I would be working with my talking pad. So just make sure you're working neat and organized when you're doing it. All right. So I'm going to erase this. And we're talking about a clean piece of paper on our talking pad, or we're talking about the bottom half of that sheet. So folks, a couple of programs and incentives that'll always save you money, whether you were to decide to do this project now or whether you did this project in 6 months or a year, is we do have a senior citizens discount. If you don't mind my asking, how old are you? And you know, you always want to say when you're asking a sensitive question, if you don't mind my asking. If you don't mind my asking, how much do you make? If you don't mind my asking, what's your credit? If you don't mind my asking, how old are you? And they go, those are just examples, those other two. And they go, well, we're 57. Well, today that's a good thing. We use AARP's number of 55 for senior citizens. So you're entitled to the senior citizen program. Don't call it a discount. We want to call it an incentive. In this case, we'll call it a program, senior citizen program. Now, the other program that we have is our military and our first responders. So that's anybody in any armed branch, you know, National Guard, Coast Guard, Army, Marines, Air Force, any of that stuff. First responders, police, firefighters, emergency rescue personnel, you know, EMTs, nurses, all of these fall under the first responder category. Do you or anybody in your family, it doesn't have to be you, it can be your children, it can be your brothers and sisters, it can be your parents, anybody in your family, military in any way, shape, or form, fire, police, nurses, emergency personnel, anybody at all in your extended family. And believe me, since we're including like nurses and, you know, emergency personnel and fire and police and any branch of the military, they're going to have somebody. And you go, all right. So that's our, and write either military or first responders, depending on what they said. So in this case, I'm going to write first responders, and I'm going to write program. And then the third program, and this really only applies to anything in the bathroom. So if you're doing bathrooms, you can say, and the other thing we have is a medical needs program. Now listen to me carefully, John and Mary, you know, because of the way our government's programs work for, you know, elderly people and people with disabilities, we're able to make use of some of those programs when it comes to our taxes. Do you have anything on a medical need? Bad knees, bad hips, arthritis, replace joints, slip and fall instances, anything. And again, they'll come up with something. Well, I got arthritis or I have a bad knee. So that works. So if you're doing bathrooms, you can also do a medical needs program. Now, what I want you to do mathematically, and I don't want you to tell the homeowners this, but mathematically, I want you to take 2% for each one of these. 2, 4, 6. That's 6% that you're going to add up if you had all three. If you didn't have medical needs and you were selling windows or you're selling kitchens or roofing, then you have senior citizen or first responders, and you'd go 2, 4. If you don't have a senior citizen either, and all you've been able to get is first responders or military, then use 3% rather than 2. But if you've got more than one, whether it's 2 or 3, always use 2% each. So I got 4%, and I'm simply going to take my calculator, and I'm going to go 24,342 times 0.04. 4,342 times point. And that, folks, those two discounts come up to a savings of $973 off. That comes to a savings of $973 off for you. Pretty nice, huh? We appreciate your service. Really do. Now, that's a savings that you would be able to make use of anytime, whether you did this today, whether you did it 6 months from now or a year from now. Now, we do have our biggest program, and hear my words here, ladies and gentlemen. We do have our biggest program. It's an incentive that's not for everyone, but it is for today's business. And let me explain. See, we won't sacrifice the quality of our products or the quality of the installation that we offer to our customers. So in order to have a significant savings, what we have to do is we have to reduce the cost of remodel doing business. And when you can help us reduce those costs, we don't put that savings in our back pocket. We give it back to you. Let me show you where this savings comes from. See, 50% of the people I talk to in a month say yes and move forward. And 25% of the people I talk to say no or don't qualify, and that's okay. This isn't for everyone. But the big savings comes in the final 25%. See, I see up to 3 people a day. Now, our appointment was for 2 o'clock, and if I'd have been several hours late, or heaven forbid, hadn't shown up, I'd have lost the right to do business with you, wouldn't I? You'd have been upset. Absolutely. You would have every right to be. And that lost money, those lost opportunities from somebody being upset because we're late or we don't show up, that represents millions of dollars to the company. Because there's not one of me, there's 120 of me. So what we do, folks, is when I'm with someone, now we're going to hit them with now and today. We're going to hit them with that right cross with now or today. We're finally going to bring it down to right now. So what I do, folks, when I'm with someone who's seriously considering moving forward while I'm there, that savings is created for the company. And so when you decide to take advantage of our initial visit incentive, and I pull out the initial visit incentive letter and I lay it down and I say that savings comes right here. When you help us reduce the cost of be-back appointments, reducing our gas, our travel expenses, giving us the opportunity to see more people and do more business, that creates a tremendous savings for the company. So John and Mary, I'm going to show you how much that savings is. You just take a good look at it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, I'll take a no as graciously as a yes. Fair enough? You can give me a yes or a no, can't you, John? It's very, very, very important that you remember at this point to get them to agree to give you a yes or a no. I'm going to explain why in a minute, but I want to follow through on this conversation and with this board work. But again, it's very, very important that you get them when you present this incentive to agree to give you a yes or a no, and you'll take a no as gracious as yes. Do not forget that, because it opens up your entire conversation string that's about to come. Now what you do is you go over here underneath this and you go, today incentive, a total savings between that $973 and the savings created. If you decide to move forward today, John and Mary, you just saved $2,480. And I then go to one click and I trash can my 1 year line, my 1 year price promise line, where I added the $2,480, and I show them, I let them see that number drop right on the screen. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my payment estimator. They said they were going to give me $1,500 down. So my numbers dropped, $2,480. I take $1,500 off of that. I put it in payment estimator. So I've accounted for their deposit that they're putting down. And then I'll take them out to the 120 or the 144. I don't go to 180 yet. I hold that in my pocket. I hold that back here. But I take them to the 120 or the 144. And then I then show them, and we can do this for $282 a month. And then I say one of two things, because this is all an assumptive close. You don't sit there and go, and I can do it for $282 a month, and then stop and wait for them to go, okay, we'll take it. Because it's very difficult for people to say, okay, we'll take it. Don't wait for them to do that. You need to assume the close. So I say one of two things every time when I assume the close. And that is, I look at them and I go, that's a lot better, isn't it? And of course they're going to say, yes, it's a lot better, because it is. It's $2,840 better. That's a lot better, isn't it? Welcome to Remodel USA. And I stick that hand out for the handshake or the fist for the fist bump, and I wait for it. Or I can say this, I love to see people save money. Welcome to Remodel USA. And put your fist out to the one that's been the most excited about it. They're the one that's most likely to tap off with you. All right? So again, I put total savings. So I've accounted for the 973. That's in here. And then about 1,500 or so, 1,400 and change, is the initial visit incentive. So I don't have to worry about splitting them back and forth. I just go the senior citizen, first responders, if they have medical needs. If it's just one, I'll do 3%. If it's 2 or 3, I'll do 2% each. And I don't say 2% or 3% to them. I write the amount, savings of $973 off. And I pause, and I let them digest that. And I let them look back at the 24,432, and in their head they go, okay, that brings it down to 23 something. And I let them figure all that out. I don't move fast. I let them have a second to digest this and understand and hear what I said, that this is a program they would always be able to get. But then I go, but let me tell you about our biggest incentive. See, we have a program. It's not for everyone, but it is for today's business. Let me explain to you. See, what we won't do as a company is we won't change the quality of the products or the quality of the installation that we do. So when someone decides to move forward when I'm there and creates a significant amount of savings for the company in the cost of doing business, we don't put that money in our back pocket. We give that savings back to the customer. Let me explain where it comes from. See, 50% of all the people I talk to in a month will say yes and move forward. And 25% roughly will say no, or they don't qualify. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. But that final 25%, you see, John and Mary, I see 2-3 people a day. Now, your appointment was at 4 o'clock today. If I'd have been several hours late, or heaven forbid, hadn't shown up at all, you'd have been pretty irritated with me, wouldn't you? Yeah. I'd have lost the right to earn your business. And see, that lost business by being late or not showing up to appointments, that represents millions of dollars of business to Remodel USA, because there's not one of me, there's 120 of me. So what my company has done, rather than put that savings in the back pocket when someone wants to move forward, we've created an initial visit incentive. And this incentive is simply for those people who have helped us reduce the cost of repeat visits, lowered our travel expenses, lowered our fuel expenses, allowing us to see more people and do more business. For those people, we offer a significant savings. So you combine that incentive with what you're always going to be entitled to, and that's a total savings of $2,480, or whatever the 11% is that you added. And I write that down. And I don't say the number is $2,480. I say the number is $2,480. Whenever you're saying something you're giving them, you say it big. $973, $2,480. And if it's money they're going to give you, like the price of something, it's only $24,842. It's only $19,371. It's only $31,420. You say it that way if it's the money coming your way. So I say that. I take my one click, I trash can the 1 year so they see the number drop. Now they're looking at that lower number on the screen. I go on my payment estimator. I account for whatever deposit they're going to give. I go to 120 or 144. I write that number down and I say one of two things. Boy, I love to see people save money, John and Mary. Welcome to Remodel USA. Or I look at them and I say, that's a lot better, isn't it? And of course they're going to say yes. And I go, welcome to Remodel USA. So that right there is how you go through your major close and your qualification of incentives. So let me add a couple of things to this conversation before we wrap this video up. You will occasionally have people say, when you do the initial visit incentive, they'll say something to you like, so do I need to, you're telling me I have to decide today? Don't look at them and create confrontation and go, yes, you need to decide today. What I'm going to say is, absolutely not, John. That's why we give you a quote that's good for a year. And that's why I shared with you the programs and incentives that you would always be entitled to. This is just a little something extra that we do for folks that like what they've seen and they're ready to move forward. That's all. You do whichever works best for you. And then shut up and don't say another word and let them really stew on it and decide whether they want to move forward or not today. Don't say another word. You can't talk them into it. I'm literally going to go, he goes, do I have to decide today? Absolutely not, John. That's why we give you a quote that's good for a year. And that's why I shared with you the incentives that you would always be entitled to. This other incentive is just something a little bit extra that we do for folks that like everything they've seen and they want to go ahead and move forward and get the project done. That's all. Do what you're most comfortable with. And then I zip it up and I wait for them to, and you'll be amazed how many of them will look at you and go, okay, let's do it. But you only can get there by removing the pressure. All right, next thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about the importance of what's called true rejection. And true rejection is the fact that in this business, people are not going to not buy from you by telling you no. They're not going to look at you and go, no, Mike, I'm never going to buy windows from you. Or no, Sally, I'm never going to buy a bathroom from you. They're going to not buy from you through procrastination. They're going to sit on the fence and tell you they need to think about it. They need to talk to someone. They need to get out estimates. It's a big decision. You can't expect me to make it today. They're going to sit squarely on the fence. And all you need to do to be phenomenally successful in this business is make the personal decision that you're just going to get people to decide one way or the other. They're just going to say yes or no. And so you have to be committed to taking this to true rejection. You're not going to leave the house as long as somebody's still sitting at the table and talking to you. They have to be done. They have to shut down. They have to look at you and say, no, I'm not going to get it. That's what's absolutely important for you to get to. Because until you can learn to get to true rejection, people are not going to buy from you by sitting on the fence. So before you showed them this, you said to them, now folks, before I show you this last incentive, I'm going to show you the savings. What I want you to do is just take a good look at it and give me a yes or a no. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. I'll take a no as graciously as a yes. You can tell me no, can't you, John? He goes, yep, I sure can. Mary, can you say no? Yep, sure can. Fantastic. That's all I'm asking, is just a yes or no. And so then I show him this incentive, and now I'm teed up for true rejection, right? I can hold them accountable to giving me a yes or no. I might porch light them at this point. I might walk out there and say, well, if y'all need a little bit of time to think about it, go ahead. I need to check my phone messages anyway. Come get me when you're done. And we'll walk out. We'll talk more about the porch light later on another video and go more into depth with the porch light. But I might use the porch light right here. But you've got to learn to go to true rejection, because what you're doing here, the beauty thing of it is, if they don't say yes and buy here, and if you can be strong enough and get them to go, John, just tell me no. You said yes or a no. Well, yeah, this isn't something I can't decide on this. So was there anything about the company that we didn't provide or didn't? No, the company's great. Is the product the right product for you? Yeah. So it just comes down to the money then, doesn't it? Yep, it sure does. Well, John, you said this doesn't work, but you did tell me you would give me a yes or a no. At what number would you have said yes? Well, what do you mean? Well, there must be a number. You said you would give me a yes or a no. I mean, this isn't a yes. I hear that. That's fine. As I told you, I'll take a no as gracious as a yes. But what is the number that you would have said yes at? See, what you're doing is you're forcing them to give you a magic number. And I don't care if that number is 10 grand, 12 grand, 14 grand, 15 grand, whatever. I'm getting them to give me a magic number, the number that you would be signing papers at right now. Because that magic number then becomes your starting point. You're not starting at zero. Now you're just starting at that point. Maybe I'll do the 3-step value bump. Maybe I'll just go to an MOD call with my magic number. But this conversation, if you'll get people to agree to give you a yes or a no, when they say no, you then have the ability to ask them, well, at what number would you have said yes? What do you mean, Harold? Well, I mean, you told me you'd give me a yes or a no, so that means there was a number you would have said yes at. What is that number? I'm just curious. And it lets you get that magic number out of them, so you've got a point to work at. One last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the porch light close. And again, we're going to go in more depth on the porch light close in another video. But I want to talk about it here because it's so important here. If somebody's been telling you all along in this process, well, we're going to have to think about it, or we're going to need a few days, we're going to need to talk about it, because you're going to get those customers. The two objections you're going to hear the most are going to be, we need to get other prices and we need to think about it. We need to get other quotes and we need to think about it. By far, those are the two you're going to hear all the time. And we need to think about it, people. Start that process with you early. Well, just so you know, we're going to have to think about this. We're not doing it today. We're going to have to talk about it. They start that process. If they haven't started it earlier on, they started at the pre-close and they keep it going. So, and you just keep going with your close, but what you do is you flip their words just a little bit when you get to this point, and you do it with a porch light. Now that they have all the information, you literally look at them and go, folks, now I know you need to talk about it. You don't say think about it now. I know you need to talk about it. Makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to step out and check my voice messages. Y'all go ahead and talk. Come get me when you're done. And you walk out the door. And even if they try and stop you, you just keep going, because they're going to talk about it once you walk out, no matter what they were saying. So a porch light close is very good to deal with people when they're saying we need to think about it or we need to talk about it. You just let them say that, and then at the right moment, here at this close, when you've got that initial visit incentive in front of them, you just go, now I know you need to talk about it, and then that lets you. The other thing you can do further up in the close, when we were back here at price presentation, if anybody gives you any pushback about, well, now, we need to think about it, blah, 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 and they're trying to stop you in your process or something, you can simply say to them, John, I hear you about needing to think about it. I get it. That makes sense. But I'm not going to be here when you're thinking about it, so I want to make sure you have all the information you need to make a decision. So let me finish going through this and give you that information, okay? Now, he thinks, I'm not going to be here because I'm going to be down the road and it's going to be 2 days later. I'm going to be on the other side of the door doing a porch light close, which is what I'm going to be doing in about 20 or 30 minutes. But he doesn't know that. And making that statement, remember, it's our challenge to say things that allow us to move forward in the way we want, but keeps them relaxed and not feeling any pressure. So if I'm in price presentation or somewhere in the close and somebody starts giving me pushback, listen, we got to think about this. we're not doing this today. I'll literally look at them because I'm not ready to porch slide them yet because I'm still going through the process. I'll look at them and go, that makes sense, John. I get that. But I won't be here when you're thinking about it. Let me give you all the information you need so you can make a good decision for you guys, for yourself. All right, that's all I'm doing. Let me get all the information for you. All right, makes sense? And then that'll relax them. Let me keep going through the close. And then I'm going to porch slide them at this point and tell them, I know you need to talk about it. And then that'll be my prelude. Now, we'll talk more about the porch slide on a different video, but I just wanted to touch base on that. So true rejection, you got to dig out that magic number. And you should close half of the sales you get at this point. Now, if they don't buy here, you're then going to turn to a higher authority close, which are your MOD calls. That whole process of MOD calls and higher authority close is a separate video. I'm going to end this video now of major close, and we're going to do the button up and the warm down. And then the next video after that is MOD calls, the higher authority close, and that picks up if this doesn't close right there. And we'll talk about those. Thank you. Like button, subscribe, follow.